This morning couldn't be better. It went down at 20 degrees last night. The pond is frozen. I'm so glad I got that painting done yesterday, and I stayed up with John and we worked on a new computer. I want to show that. We got so many things going on at the same time. I've got parts to buff. It's way too cold to paint right now. You can sound like I'm in New England with Midgley here. Anyway, it's brutally cold out here. I didn't even put a coat on thinking it was warmer. Oh my God, what a mistake. Anyway, it's going to be a very exciting day. I know it. And what's good about it, I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. That's what I like about having every day different. Now, of course, I try to make every day as entertaining as possible, try to make it a little bit different. And that's easy when I don't have a choice about a lot of things. Now, I've been waiting for a long time to get a new computer, and we finally got it, and we actually started getting the apps that we want on it, and we're going to use it hopefully to upgrade our whole internet experience, but mostly the editing of our daily videos. But when it's cold like this, early in the morning, and I'm stupid enough to come out here without a jacket, I deserve it. It's time to go check out the backyard, and there's no chance of snow, so who knows where this day is going to go. And when there's ice on the pond, you know it's at least 20 or below in the middle of the night. When we wake up and there's ice on the pond, oh, Jesus. That coffee will taste great today. So John and I have been working on this. Overnight, I fooled around with this, and we were doing a test. I wanted to see how this would be if I could do 2 YouTube videos at the same time, just for entertainment value. See, because I'm in the shop all day, grinding and polishing and everything, so I like to have something playing in the background, some entertainment, and not much on TV entertains me now. I don't bother watching any political stuff. I just like motorcycle videos. There's just no substitute for having your coffee in the morning and checking out all your little stuff that's going on. Everything just drying up beautifully. It just couldn't be better. That heat is on. I'm not sure that heat is on. And now I can be distracted by I can be on 2 computers at the same time here. This is pretty cool. Anyway, special thanks to John POTHIER, who was up late last night with me burning the midnight oil, and it worked out great, John. So what I thought I'd do today, based on the fact that the weather, as unpredictable as it's been, it probably is not going to go up over freezing today, so it would limit our ability to paint, unless it's like yesterday and all of a sudden it spikes up to 40 degrees. But in the meantime, this is a part, it's got plenty of clear on it. I want to take some 2000 grit paper, sand down especially all the areas that I'm going to see, because where the instruments go here, I'm going to see this whole piece. I'm going to see up here. So I want to spend, and because of the shape, I'm going to basically have to do the whole thing by hand, and it'll be time consuming. I'll do it with 2000 grit Indasa, and once that's all leveled out, I'll see if I'm probably going to have to buff the whole or a major part of it by hand. I don't know. So I put in the instruments, I just drop them in. They're going to be rubber mounted. There's special bolts and grommets, and I've saved them all separately, but I can see this whole area is going to be very visible. This whole area here, everything else in the back gets buried by the fairing. So I'll know exactly where I have to put the most of my effort here. Now, since I have to basically do the whole part by hand, there's no real flat spots here. And when you have a part like that, it usually gets pretty time consuming. But time is the one thing I don't try to keep track of. As soon as you start trying to do everything in a hurry, it seems like the fun goes away. It's for me anyway. Now, maybe for you it doesn't, but for me it does. But there's good news and bad news, of course. The good news is that as cold as it is today and tomorrow, a couple of days, in the next, I think, 3 days, Karen told me, it's supposed to get right up there in the 40s again, where we'll be able to paint conveniently. And if we paint now, it's pretty inconvenient. And maybe even get a short ride in. Who knows? You never know. And that's what's entertaining about this kind of a lifestyle, is if you knew ahead of time, well, I'm not sure. I had a life at one time working for Ford Motor Company where every day was within 10 seconds of the day before, and nothing ever changed. They never painted the room. They never changed the chairs. The computer was the same. It was a 360/30 mainframe. And it just went on. It was exactly what prison is. Same thing every day. I try not to have my life now that I have a little more control over it. And Karen kind of likes it too. And having these restoration projects to work on keeps me fit as a fiddle. Well, you may not agree with that. Maybe a counterpoint to that. Anyway, let me just sand the rest of this by hand and then we'll see how it comes out. 2000 grit Indasa soapy water. Now, while I'm taking a break from all that sanding, Scott asked me an interesting question. He's got a brand new spray gun. He wanted to know how to set it up. And I wrote it out, but I thought in the future, one of the things we could do on a paintable day is I'll take one of these spray guns and we'll just pretend it's out of the box brand new, because I've got every kind that you could possibly have here. They sell at Harbor Freight, and even some they don't. But taking one of these spray guns, basically, and this is good information, Scott, if you take this out of the box, you don't touch a thing. Don't touch a thing, don't touch a thing. Take this knob here. This knob here, close it all the way in that it doesn't spray, and then back it out a little bit, back it out a little bit. All of a sudden it'll just start to spray. And then look at the spray pattern. It's going to be dry and pebbly like sandpaper. Back it out a little more, spray again. 40 pounds of pressure to start. It'll be a little wetter. At some point in time, it won't be pebbly around the edge. And that's pretty close, within a half a turn of being your starting point. And then from that point on, it's like baking a cake. You just got to experiment. Paint some light bulbs. Paint your neighbor's car. You know, if there's a squirrel in the neighborhood, paint his tail. But it's just a question of practice. But we will in the future, on a paintable day that I have some time, do a real detailed unboxing, because so many people, I've gotten such good feedback about these videos that it's basic information a lot of people want. They don't want to know how to make a rocket to the moon. They want to know how to get their car started on a cold day, that kind of thing. But this is terrible. Karen, in her infinite wisdom, she comes down and she looks at how I have the TV set up and she says, "Oh, how good. This year," she's a big football fan, "the Giants and Jets played at exactly the same time." She says, "I can sit here and watch both football games." I'm not sure she can, but you see how different people's minds work? Back to sanding. Now, these parts that had the little texture on them, obviously what happens is at some point in time the paint shrinks and you can start to see the texture. Now, when you're doing carbon fiber parts, real carbon fiber parts, a lot of times you will see the imprint coming through if you put clear paint on top of it. And so you have to go through this operation. Well, it just adds one little complexity to it. But so far, that carbon fiber part that we have, that just really came out nice. I'm really amazed. But anything we could learn along the way, we're more than happy to pass on, because the reason is I know the people that really do enjoy doing this kind of work, or in some other cases, like building model planes or whatever, it wouldn't matter. Whatever makes you happy, or whatever entertains you, or in my case, keeps you young, well, not so sure that's working the way I planned. But anyway, Karen seems convinced that riding around on motorcycles and working on them all winter is a good thing. She likes having me around the house. I guess she likes to keep me where she can keep an eye that I'm not doing anything evil, you know, drinking beer or anything like that, God forbid. Anyway, this is just, I'm trying to see if I can find, no, I don't see it. I'll have to do the other spot. I thought there'd be some spots where this was coming through, but so far so good. But I can see this is not going to be a 5-minute job. This is going to be maybe an hour or two of sanding. I don't know. But I want it to be, oh yeah, there is a spot right here. Here's what I wanted to show. Maybe I could show this right now. Right down in there, you can see the little texture coming through. Well, what it means is you just have to keep hammering away at it. We say there's times that I start a part and I realize this part is going to take a lot longer than I thought it would, and then I'm tempted to rush, and many times I have done that and tried to take some kind of shortcut. A shortcut in this case would be, I'll just live with that, or live with this, or not sand out the last coat, or not buff it. And then I think, I am going to look at this part. Now, there's a funny way for me to look at it. Maybe you look at it too. Maybe Dallas looks at it this way. I plan on having all these motorcycles on the day of my death, whether that may be soon, later, or whatever. Now, for people that change out a bike every so often, none of these things matter. But when you have a keeper like this, now this bike in particular is a keeper. I've had it, Rob's had it since new. It's been super well maintained, and we really, everything about it, there's not a part of it that I don't like, including the fact that it gets really good mileage. So for me to spend this whole winter doing this, to me, I count it as an investment. And I think it won't matter how many hours it takes. If I have to respray this, if I have to do it over, it won't matter. Because I'm going to have this, and in my case, I hope a long time. But you never know that. But I do understand when people flip bikes and get a new one every year, or like Luciano every 2 weeks or something. Well, you don't want to spend this amount of time. Time is of the essence. But for me, it's not, because these are keepers. And it's like my family. I don't care what money we spend on a family, because I'm never going to have another one. And I just wanted to pass that on if I could, as a way of, a lot of people may not want to spend this amount of time doing these kind of projects, but the good thing about doing paint work, and I hope Scott gets to be a very highly skilled painter at some time, is it's relatively inexpensive, and it adds a lot of value to whatever you paint, and it is very rewarding. And that final minute that you either hand buff it looks like this part's going to have to be hand buffed. Either you hand buff it or machine buff it. Well, there's a reward there. And for people that have never had that reward, I wish I could put it in a bottle and sell it. But as opposed to that, the only thing I can do is make these videos, and if you don't enjoy it, then nobody's gonna think less of you, that's for sure. But for me, this is what I enjoy, and I've enjoyed this my whole life. All right, we've got all of the parts that are going to be visible really sanded nice and flat. And now I know most of this, probably all of it is going to have to be done by hand, just like a model plane would. Basically at the end of luckily we have another one here. What happens if you don't have inventory and right in the middle of a job you run out of product, it can ruin your whole day. Now I assume this is going to buff out just like everything else. It's just going to be very time consuming. There might be a chance I could figure a way to get a buffer in here, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't do more damage than... Sometimes you outsmart yourself. Let's just put it that way. Now, I thought I'd show one little spot here. I know people like Ruben McBride. Ruben, I'm thinking of you. Always wanting to upgrade his modeling skills. I know if you can get your hand on his product. Now, we found out something interesting. I contacted the people in Germany on John's behalf to find out if they had a West Coast distributor, and they don't. So I don't know. When I go to Gavin's, I'm going to try to find out if there's some way I can buy it and, I don't know, ship it to John. John's looking to try some of this on his custom Corvette. But you should never be afraid to just buff it out by hand, because this is... First off, it's good exercise. And then you can eat extra pizza that night, or pepperoni, or whatever. And a nice thing about this is you could even do this to, let's say, I know Steve, I think, did his bike when it was all assembled. And you don't need a guy to hold it. See, I need somebody to hold it here. So, anyway, this part probably is going to consume the better part of the day here, the way this is going. But I always like to show one in real time, and there's no substitute for that. And any of these other things that they look too good to be true, and then you buy the product, and maybe it is too good to be true. But this has turned out to be a real find. And this system that we use, I don't think there's anything special about the Gavco Clear. It's just like 5-star. And certainly 2000 Indasa sandpaper, I just bought some off of the internet, right through Amazon, in fact. The 2000 red, by the way, there's 2 grades. The red is the one you want. A little bit more money, and I did make a miscalculation. John corrected me on that, and we're always looking to keep it honest. But anyway, if sandpaper was cheap or expensive, I still don't want to waste it. So I want to show this in real time, and not sure you can see that, but it's just like a model plane. That's how it would come up. Just a lot of areas on this, and in these valleys that it just takes time, And sometimes I start losing patience, and then I start thinking, I'm going to be looking at this part for a long time. So do I want to look at that little error, painting error, or do I want to say, it's a little bit nicer than I thought it would be? But every once in a while you run into a part that it's just easier, I guess, for me anyway. And it's very nostalgic, reminds me of buffing out all those model airplanes over the years. Wow. We have used a lot of compound in our life, that's for sure. Going back to the days of the old DuPont, red and white, and up through all of the modern stuff. And the best one I've found is this 4CR. Boy, that is, even by hand it comes out now. Let me just show some of this. I still got to get in there just a little bit, but it's a really good quality polish. Well, it was a lot of hand labor to get this buffed out, but it looks like we finally got it to the point where we're going to be able to assemble it today. Well, when these parts are new, they're new, and you just buff them out. Wow. How much different is that than the flat black part that came with the motorcycle? Oh, I got the bag with all the little parts that we have to assemble on this. Should be pretty straightforward. There's some rubber bushings and there's some little pieces of foam. I have to just take some hot glue and put a dab of it on there. The bushings go right back. That should be pretty cut and dry. These usually drop right in. In fact, that one's going to go. And how nice this is that everything is, maybe do this with a screwdriver, I'm not sure. Some of these bushings are such a nice tight fit. And back in the day when you didn't have rubber mounted, oh my God. And the next thing, just pull this hot joint off, this hot glue, and we got all the rubber bushings in. There's a couple of bolts that hold that speedometer unit in, and we'll be all assembled. Now we know exactly where these go because there's a little impression on the back. And we've got the 3 screws that make that assembly a little bit easier. Always nice to have all the parts. Now that piece will get put on this piece, right through all those rubber bushings. Everything nice and vibration isolated. Oh, that's nice. That's a nicely engineered part. Now we got all these screws, and these are the exact ones that go in there. They're all mounted in those rubber bushings. Once I tighten those down, that'll be pretty easy peasy. Now I always like working on something. I have the bolts in a little bag and the parts that go with this assembly. Just make it a little bit easier. And I really do like looking at when they strip a car down and they put it in 2,000 bags. Boy, that's a lot more complicated than this. We have now another little thing that I do on any. This is kind of a threaded fastener that goes into plastic. Put 1 drop of thin CA on it, Brodak thin CA. Just let it sit, and it acts like Loctite. Because to take this piece off, to take those screws out, would be really a big job. If these screws got loose, there'd be no way to get behind them realistically to do that. So, cheap investment. Now those instruments, I think that's going to add a nice little dimension to the motorcycle. I just am really happy the way that came out. And one of the things I've always liked about this bike is the look from where you're sitting driving it, and those instruments, really nice. They're really bright at night. They're a nice set of instruments. And this will make it, I hope, just a little bit nicer. Well, this part took a lot longer than I thought it would, but I think ultimately this is really going to add a nice dimension. I think it is anyway, especially when you're driving the bike, which is the best time of all. And it took a lot longer than I thought it would, but the result I think is really worth it. Anyway, hope you did enjoy the video, and of course, we're going to be excited about seeing our new double TV, double computer system. Think of what we can do to invent something along the lines of, maybe we could ride 2 motorcycles at the same time. I don't know. It's like a twin-engine plane. It's really pretty cool. Anyway, again, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.